O'Reilly. You need parts? O'Reilly Auto Parts has parts. Need them fast? We've got fast. No matter what you need, we have thousands of professional parts people doing their part to make sure you have it. Product availability. Just one part that makes O'Reilly stand apart. The professional parts people. O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Hi guys, quick one before we get into the episode. This episode is sponsored by Zencastr, which is the production suite that I've used from the very beginning of this podcast. And if you're interested in starting your own podcast, hang around at the end of the episode for our 30% discount referral code. Thanks.
So our podcast is called Right and Wrong.
Are these your notes?
These
These are your notes about what we're going to say?
Anything.
Nailed it.
It's a short answer.
So how many novels did you not finish?
Oh my god, so many.
It was perfect. What's she talking about? This is nonsense.
Ooh, a spicy question. I love it.
This is it, guys. The big secret to getting published is you have to write a good book. You heard it here first. Hello, and welcome back to the Right and Wrong podcast. Today, I'm very excited to introduce my guest, author, graphic designer, in the final countdown to the release of her debut novel, The Other Ones. It's Fran Hart. Hi, Fran.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Oh, thanks for coming. Let's start off with the book itself, your debut, The Other Ones.
Yeah.
What's it all about?
Okay, so The Other Ones is a ghostly romance. It's being billed as Heartstopper meets Gilmore Girls, with a bit of a spooky edge. Well, a lot of a spooky edge. So it's about a boy called Sal who lives in a haunted house. But he wants nothing more than to be completely ordinary and to fit in. He meets the new boy in town, Pax, who is unapologetically weird and very interested in the haunted house. And the whole book revolves around the unlikely friendship that they develop, which eventually leads to something more. But that connection is threatened when the mystery and the secret that surround the house begin to unravel.
Sounds great. So what was the inspiration for this? Where did it come from?
Yeah, well, I started with the characters.
Uh-huh.
Because I didn't really have sort of a flash of inspiration. I actually wrote it for NaNoWriMo.
Oh, yeah.
So I very much sat down and thought, what can I write a book about? And I love the grumpy versus sunshine trope. So that was kind of my starting point. I wanted to write sort of one character who desperately wanted to be normal and one character who was unabashedly not normal.
Yeah.
So I started with that relationship and kind of fleshed the characters out from there.
Oh, okay. So yeah, so start with the characters and then you did the world kind of come afterwards and the supernatural sort of elements to it, that all came after the fact?
Yeah. Well, I started with the characters and the setting as well.
Oh, right.
I knew I wanted to set it in a slightly weird small town.
Yeah, with a haunted house.
And yeah, the plot definitely came later on. The characters and the setting were definitely the starting point.
Very cool. And so exciting that the release is almost here. Have you got a lot going on with the build up and the launch?
Yeah, it's been busy and it's been very surreal because it's felt like such a long build up to it coming out.
Yeah.
And now suddenly it's here and everything's happening. So it's a very exciting time, but nerve-wracking as well.
It's a real roller coaster, the sort of publishing, especially I imagine the first time going through all of those motions. Is it kind of what you expected or is it full of surprises?
I think it is pretty much what I expected. Yeah. It's been lovely to see sort of the amount of support for the book already. I guess that's one of the things that surprised me. Everyone's been lovely, sort of, especially on social media and Twitter. There's been a lot of people posting really nice things, which is great to see. Yeah.
I mean, like my experience with the writing community generally is that it's a very friendly and uplifting group of people.
Yes.
Authors seem very happy to help other authors for the most part.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is nice.
Yeah.
It's a good community to involve yourself in.
It is, absolutely. Yeah.
So had you written anything before the other ones, or was this your debut first story?
It was the very first novel I've ever written.
Oh.
I'd sort of dipped in and out of writing. I'd written short stories and that kind of thing, but never anything of this length or anything comparable, really. I think the longest thing I'd written before was probably sort of 10,000 words, something like that. So,
okay, so not insignificant.
No, not insignificant, but not short quite story. Comparable.
yeah, it's only about 5 or 6 times longer than that.
Yeah,
that's interesting. So, I mean, what an amazing turnout for your first sort of submitted piece.
Yeah.
Because you won the Times Chicken House Chairman's Choice Prize.
I did, yes. Yeah.
But that was in, when we just talked about the length of I mean, we all know that publishing is a very slow industry. Mm-hmm. But on top of that, you won the prize in 2020?
Yeah, that's right. So I think it was in October 2020 that I found out that I'd won. So it's been quite a long time, I guess. It's not really felt like a long time.
Has it all been editing in the meantime? Is there been a lot of work being done on this, or has it been more of we're waiting for the right window for this book to come out?
Well, they knew they wanted it to come out in autumn. That was one of the very first things that Chicken House said to me, which makes perfect sense because it is such an autumnal book.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's been a little bit of waiting around. Everyone always says sort of publication involves so much waiting. There's definitely been a little bit of that, but there's also been a lot of editing.
And that was with the wonderful Kessia Lupo.
That's right, yes.
How did you, I mean, as someone who's this is the first novel that you'd written in full, how did you find working with an editor?
I found it really good. Kessia is an amazing person to work with. Because she's a writer herself, she brings so many sort of great ideas to the table. And it was lovely as well to have someone to sort of unpick problems with me. But at the same time, I had never worked with anyone before on a book, so it was a completely new process for me.
Oh, really? So you don't have any sort of like a writing group or a feedback group that you work with?
No, that's right. Well, I've never been involved in anything like that. And actually, before I entered the Chicken House competition, there were only 2 people in the world who had read the book.
Wow.
Yeah, and one of those was me. So
who was the other one?
The other one was my mum.
Oh, okay.
she was my first feedback.
Yeah, which I mean, I feel like I don't know if this is. I don't want to judge your mother, but if I gave my mother the book, it would be mostly praise, and I don't know if I could fully trust it.
Yeah, no, she did come up with some good feedback, which actually went in and stayed in. So I think she did a decent job.
There you go. That's great. Is there a second book on the way? Are you working on something new?
I am working on ideas for something new.
Okay.
Yeah. And I have I've got a lot of thoughts, but nothing nothing concrete yet, nothing sort of plotted out.
It's still in the pre-conceptual phases.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Would it also be spooky horror romance?
I think so, yeah. Definitely staying with YA and definitely have some romance in there. And then the spooky edge it's possibly up for debate. I've got sort of some ideas that are a little bit spookier and some that are very much set in reality. So
okay,
yeah.
So the spooky element is flexible. You're more a YA romance focus. You lean towards definitely. The romance. The spookiness is a bit of flair that you'll dip in and out of. That's cool. I like that. Would it be in the same universe, or would it be a completely different thing set with different place, different people?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I would at some point love to write a sequel.
Oh yeah.
But no set plans for that yet. And I also quite like the idea of using the same universe, but sort of zeroing in on a different section of it. Maybe another small town.
Yeah, I love that. where
Yeah.
it doesn't, like they're both sort of, I love it when a book in quotes series is like, they're all technically in the same universe, but they are isolated stories that you could easily read without having any knowledge of the other one. It's just fun to know that they exist in tandem.
Yes, definitely. I love it when you get characters from a different book sort of popping up as cameos as well.
Yeah. As long as it's just a cameo, because otherwise you're leaning into it actually being some kind of sequel.
That's true.
I think that's how Kessia's books are. They're in the same universe, but
yeah, that's right.
Don't really cross over really at all, other than the place itself.
Yeah,
which makes sense. Which makes sense when you've built a world, I think, and Kessia's world is very fleshed out and fantastical. So.
It is, yeah, definitely.
What's the sort of supernatural element like in your books? Was it something that you spent a lot of time figuring out the intricacies of it, or did you keep it quite simple?
I would say it started off fairly simple, and then I very quickly realised that what I had wasn't enough to carry me through the entire novel. So it started off being a very simplistic thread, and it was sort of it was fleshed out way back in the early stages when I was first writing it, and then actually fleshed out even more when I was working on it with Chicken House and with Kessia. That was one of the main things we focused on.
Yeah. I mean, a huge role that I think a lot of editors play is making sure that all of the systems within the world and the story fit nicely into place.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it needed weaving more into the book, I would say. It was it almost felt a little bit separate from the book sort of at the beginning, and we worked at sort of intertwining the character's journey a little bit more with the spooky nature of the house and all the ghostly goings on.
Let's dial it back to the you won the prize back in 2020, and at that point, I know that you're signed with Kate Shaw. She's your agent now.
She is.
Spin your passion into a business with Shopify and break sales records with the world's best converting checkout. Let's hear that one more time. The world's best converting checkout. Shopify's legendary checkout makes it easier for customers to shop on your website, across social media, and everywhere in between. Now that's music to your ears. Any way you spin it, you can be a smash hit with Shopify. Start your $1 a month trial today at shopify.com/records.
Yeah.
Was that off the back of winning the prize? Did you speak to many agents after that?
I didn't. I spoke exclusively to Kate, who was so lovely and so supportive and so kind about the book. And yeah, I just knew sort of straight away that she was the person that I wanted to sign with, and she was going to be the right choice for the book. So
Amazing.
I met her sort of through the competition, and part of the prize was an offer of representation, and yeah, she was a great fit. So it worked out really nicely.
So was she involved with the competition?
She was, yeah. She was actually one of the judges.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. That's great. You didn't have to get in the old submission trenches with that one.
No, thank goodness. I've heard a lot about other people doing it, and it does not sound like fun.
Yeah, it's hard work. Like, if anyone's listening, this is the way you want to do it. Win a competition, have an agent come to you. Perfect.
Yes.
But I don't want to take away from the, how the competition is so steep for something like the Times Chicken House Chairman's Choice of Prize. There's so many entries to those, and you did so well to win that.
Well, thank you.
Let's talk more about you. You're a graphic designer.
I am. Yeah, that's my day job.
What sort of graphic designs do you work on? Is it quite corporate, or is it quite sort of creative?
I work on stationery design.
Oh.
So it's a little bit of everything. It's sometimes it's designing the actual stationery, and sometimes it's doing sort of marketing design, and sometimes it's quite boring stuff.
Did you, as someone who works with art and visuals, graphics, did you have any input on the cover design for the other ones?
I did. I didn't have loads, but yes, I did have a little bit. Chicken House were kind enough to send me some of the early sketches through. the cover was designed by Michaela Alcano, who's a really talented designer.
Oh, she's brilliant.
She's incredible.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was lucky enough to see sort of a whole host of early sketches, and they did say to me sort of which ones appeal, and then sort of later on in the process as well, there was opportunity to give feedback and ask for any little changes and that kind of thing. So yeah, I did have some involvement, which was really, really nice, because I know not all authors get that.
Yes, yeah. Sometimes it depends on the book. It depends on the publisher. It depends on the who's doing the cover art and stuff. So many variables, but that's great. And your input was really heard. And what the cover, which is beautiful, it is as a result of you working with the publisher and the designer, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I mean, it's mostly down to Michaela, but yeah.
But I'll take some credit. Why not?
Yeah, why not?
Well, you wrote the book, so you take credit for the inspiration.
Yes, yeah, I'll take that.
When you sit down to write, have you figured out a system, like a routine that really gets you focused, gets you in the mood, like a time of day, a place that you do stuff?
I mean, I did when I wrote this one, but I suspect for a second book, it would probably be quite different.
Yeah.
And that's just because I wrote the first one for NaNoWriMo, so it was written in quite a rush, which I wouldn't necessarily recommend. I think the next one I'd probably take it a little bit slower, and yeah, I'd do more planning as well, I think.
I was going to ask, because you wrote this one doing a NaNoWriMo thing, it was obviously, I assume the whole thing was just discovered or pantsed, however you want to call it. There wasn't an outline or a plan to it?
I did have an outline, actually. It was a very rough outline.
Yeah.
I think before I started, I thought it was quite a detailed outline. and then realised it wasn't when I was about 2 chapters in.
Oh, yeah.
But what I did was I kept coming back to it. So sort of some things I kind of wrote in by accident, but if I wrote something in by accident and I decided I wanted to keep it, I would then go back to my plan and kind of think, how can I weave this through so I know where it's going.
Oh, okay.
So I think I was a little bit of a mix, I think.
Somewhere between the two, a hybrid.
Yes, a plantster, I think it's called.
With this new one, do you intend to do much more plotting and planning before you get down to the prose of it all?
Yes, I think I would. I'm not a natural editor. I find it quite difficult.
Okay.
So I like when what first comes out is usable, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think having a more structured plan and a more in-depth plan would really help with that. Yeah.
Do you ever use any of the systems like Save the Cat or any of those kinds of things?
Yes. Yeah, that was exactly what I used for the other ones. Yeah. I found that really helpful, actually, because obviously I had no idea how to structure a novel. I'd never tried to do it before. So
yeah,
I
obviously.
pretty much used that as sort of as the basis for my plan.
Okay. I mean, Save the Cat is one of those things where I know that some people are like, oh, Save the Cats. Everyone uses Save the Cat, Save the Cat. And I'm like, yeah, there's a reason. Like it's very concise, it's very clear, and it just works. Like it's what we're all used to experiencing through a story. I think it's really good. It's a really good baseline.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can be as flexible as you want with it as well. You don't sort of need to stick with it, but I think it's a really good starting point.
Yeah. When you're writing, do you ever reach points where I don't want to say writer's block, because I don't know if that's necessarily how you diagnose it, but do you ever find times where you sit down and you're really stuck on a certain point?
I don't really.
Oh.
I tend to have that, but I have it later. I have it during editing.
Oh, really?
When I'm kind of trying to work out how to fix all the problems I've written in. But
oh, I see. It's just your first draft is very, okay, I'll just do whatever. And
yes.
and then we'll fix it later. Oh, okay.
Exactly. Yeah. I think you have to, I found I had to write for fun.
Yeah.
And just keep going for the fun of it. And if anything came up, then I did sort of think I'll fix it later.
but I think that's such a healthy way to approach it, because I'm very guilty of this, and some of my friends are the same way. Is we'll try and sort of solve something whilst we're writing it, or go back and re-edit something having just written it, and then we'll get even more stuck. And it's not any better than it was the first time you wrote it. And I think the writers that I know who say, no, I just sit down and I write the vomit draft out. I just write whatever the first draft is, doesn't matter. It's the baseline, and they know that they can come back and take out the nonsense or the bits that just didn't make sense or work in the edit.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's why NaNoWriMo was so helpful for me as well, because that's exactly what it's about.
Yeah.
You just get the words on the page and you worry about if they're any good or not later.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can't edit a blank page. So if it's written, you can edit it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's it's a really healthy mentality, a really healthy way to approach writing. Obviously, everyone does it in their own way, but if you figured out that way works for you, that's great. And,
yeah, definitely.
And speaking of sort of mantras and advice, before we do get on to the final question, I'd love to ask you specifically regarding advice. If you could go back and give yourself some advice about starting to write, what would it be?
I think it would be, make sure you're enjoying the process, because all of the bits that ended up coming out of the book were the bits I didn't really enjoy writing.
Yeah.
I think if you're not sat and enjoying what you're writing as it's going down on the page, then whoever ends up reading it isn't going to it's going to come across, and they're not going to have the same response to it.
Yeah, 100%. I completely stand by that. If you're kind of gritting your teeth and pushing through writing a certain chapter, that's almost always going to come across in the reading, so that when people come to read it, they'll sort of feel more tense. And I don't know if this is true, but I heard a story about the writer of Black Mirror, and when he's writing an episode, he stands up holding his laptop in one hand, typing with one hand, because he wants to feel unsteady, off balance, and uncomfortable, and then that comes through in the stuff that he's writing. I don't know if that's true, or if it's just the greatest urban myth, but
oh wow, no, I love that. I might have to give that a go for book 2.
Maybe just for the scenes where you want it to feel uneasy. Not all the scenes. You can rest yourself every now and again. Yes. Amazing. That's really wonderful advice. Just enjoy the writing, because if you're not enjoying it, it's probably not going to translate that well onto the page.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to write a book that was kind of not all fun and games, but that had a lot of those sort of really fun moments.
Yeah.
And I didn't, if I thought something was boring, I just skipped past it and got on to the next chapter. Yeah,
and I mean, there's another school of writing that I think it's Brandon Sanderson on one of his many lectures, where he says, whilst obviously whenever you're writing a book, you're always think, a lot of the time you have these ideas and you think, oh, later on this will happen, that'll be really cool. Oh, then this will happen later on, that'll be so cool. And he thinks that there's a lot to be gained by sort of stopping the thing that you're doing now and just going straight into the exciting thing you just thought of, and taking all that energy and excitement that you had coming up with that idea and just writing it straight away.
Yeah,
definitely. Even if it's out of order. Yeah, because it does translate.
That's a good idea. Yeah,
definitely. Amazing. Well, that brings us to the final question, which, as always, is, Fran, if you were stranded on a desert island but could take a single book with you, which would it be?
Okay, so I felt like I had to go with a YA book for this.
Staying on brand, I like it.
Yes, absolutely. And it's a YA classic. I know it's so many people's favourite YA book. And it's Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe by Benjamin Elire Saenz.
Ah, okay.
And yeah, it's genuinely just a really gorgeous book. It's sort of really compelling, just infinitely readable. It's got absolutely gorgeous characters and a really beautiful love story. And it's also all about connection and about relationships. So I feel like it's a good one to have if you are in complete solitude and maybe feeling lonely, stranded on a desert island.
Yeah, that's great. I've not read it, but that's one of the best titles that I've heard in a long time.
It is a brilliant title. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Fran, for coming on the podcast and sharing your experience. I'm so excited for the launch of the other ones. I think it's gonna be really, really great.
Oh, thank you.
For anyone listening, if you want to keep up with Fran, you can follow her on Twitter and Instagram at Fran Hart Books. And to make sure you don't miss an episode of this podcast, follow us on Twitter at Right and Wrong UK, or on Instagram and now TikTok at Right and Wrong Podcast. Thanks again to Fran, and thanks to everyone listening. We'll catch you in the next episode. Thanks for hanging around until the end. If you're interested in starting your own podcast but aren't really sure what that looks like, I can't recommend Zencastr enough. It's so simple to host, record, and download your podcast with, and it even has a built-in transcription AI. It functions entirely in the internet browser, which means all your guests have to do is click on a link and they'll be brought into the conversation. If you click on the link in the description, you'll get 30% off the first 3 months. All you have to do is click on the link in the description. Thanks again for supporting the show, and we'll see you in the next episode.
O'Reilly! You need parts? O'Reilly Auto Parts has parts. Need them fast? We've got fast. No matter what you need, we have thousands of professional parts people doing their part to make sure you have it. Product availability. Just one part that makes O'Reilly stand apart. The professional parts people. O'Reilly!